November 2nd, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. You can look down at the descriptions below to see where I took my trades as well as where I thought I saw setups. There was only one piece of economic data that came out today, which was the unemployment claims, which came out at around 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is about right here. And overall, the day was kind of a slow grinding rally. I took a total of 3 trades today and was lucky that all 3 were green. I know yesterday was the FOMC meeting, and I actually didn't really take any trades yesterday, and I wasn't feeling well, so I didn't put out a video. But it was, as far as I could tell, kind of some tough trading. I didn't really see very many setups. I'm going to get through the trades right now. So in the pre-market, I see this, and I fit this red trend channel, and it's clearly pushing, and it doesn't look like it's going to be in a range because it's a very, very strong push. There was no attempt, even with small little pullbacks, to try to reach the other side. So immediately I'm thinking this is probably going to be some kind of a rally day. Now, it doesn't mean that it couldn't come back up here, touch, and move back down. So I do draw the pre-market highs and the pre-market lows. And then now the market opens, I'm just kind of waiting. And I don't really see any setups because these candles are really, really tiny. It kind of breaks through the pre-market highs and it's kind of on its way now. It's just moving. Kind of falls into a small little consolidation area and just keeps going. And here I'm just watching. I don't see any good clean setups. It's not even coming back to the EMA. It's just hovering above it. Here it kind of comes back and touches, but there's no trade. And it starts breaking through. So I draw this channel coming down. Again, it hits a consolidation area. I don't see anything very good. I mean, you could say there's a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. This is an okay signal bar, but the range is just so tiny that you could easily, expect a bounce because, I don't know, it's just too tight and congested here. Breaks out, it kind of goes up this tiny channel, but then I find this bigger one here. It just keeps moving. Again, the EMA is holding. So already I'm thinking this is definitely not a range anymore. Looks like one giant leg up, consolidation area. And I'm thinking there's going to be another leg up. Prices then continue chopping. It breaks out of this green channel coming down. I'll just go ahead and make it make it yellow just to make my life easier. And I do see a setup here. I see a new high, the first entry long, pullback, second entry long. Now the second entry long, when I first saw it, I was thinking, would you really go long here? Yes and no, because it is kind of has this bullish bias. So I wasn't really ready to take a trade though after I saw this close because it is below the EMA, but the EMA for the most part is kind of flattening. Even though it's flattening though, the last recent price action has been going above and below it. So unlike over here, which just stayed above and had these tiny little breaks below, there was a substantial little move down below it. So here I'm not necessarily ready to take a long. Then I see this and I think, okay, there's a second entry long that failed, and I call this an almost setup because I just needed this to kind of hit the EMA and reject. And not only reject, I needed this candle to close red. But since it closed up green, that means it opened down here, did a bunch of stuff and closed here, opened up green. This next candle, it just moved one tick below. Now, it wasn't even a decisive move below to push past this guy. So this felt like a trap to me. So I didn't really feel like it was a good idea to go short because, as I said, the overall bias has been bullish. But it turns out it would have worked. But this is kind of a tricky little setup here. And prices continue chopping, kind of moves back up. Here I draw this blue line because I'm seeing some kind of resistance, and I wasn't 100% sure buying into the idea that this is in a range, but it could have been. It could have been this blue line here, and the top of this pre-market range could have been like a small little range here. But I wasn't sure at the time, so I just kind of sat and waited. And I did like how it had extra resistance here. And I saw this as a new high, a first entry long, and I actually saw it as a, that's strange. I don't know why I call it a hidden second entry long. It should just be a, this is actually no hidden anything. It's just, I did see it as a first entry long, pullback. Maybe you could argue for a hidden second entry long, but I don't think this is really a setup of any kind. I'd see it more as a first entry long. So I'll go ahead and delete this. Then prices continue moving. It falls into what I think is this green channel and had a small little overshoot here. It has a consolidation area and keeps going. At this point, I'm looking for a bigger channel, which I ended up with this second red one. I had 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch. And I also thought, I wasn't really sure where the top of it was, and I had it a little bit tighter here and had an overshoot. But once the overshoot occurred, I was expecting another break here, but it consolidated. So I just kind of drew it and matched it up here. The prices continue moving. It's hugging the bottom of this trend channel and it's finally breaking out. It's losing some strength. And it looks like it's range bound. It's actually from this top to here was where I had the initial range, and it broke out below. And it looked like I had a failed breakout and came right back in. Just chopping around. And then here, that's where I settled on this range being here, because throughout this whole price action, I was modifying it. I even had overlapping trading ranges at one time, and then I finally just settled on this. The price action just keeps moving, comes back down. It's just very congested here. Look at the stems on these guys. The bodies are tiny. Drops around, and this is actually where I set up and take my first trade. I saw a new low here, first entry short, pullback, second entry short. Now, these are two matching candles, the same highs and the same lows. Now, what I saw in real time was when I drew this, I clearly thought this was the top resistance. The bottom support, I wasn't 100% sure of, because as I said, it used to be up here, and then when it broke down below through here and came flashing back up, I was thinking maybe it's actually down here. It was supporting it, broke out here, went back up. It wasn't holding very nicely here, so I decided to drag it down again. I thought maybe it's actually right here, where it has 1 touch. I mean, whether it had touches back here or not, you could argue for, but it didn't really matter. But it's like at least 1 touch. Looks like it was kind of holding here. So this is kind of sets up for what I thought was an actual trade. I saw this as first entry short, second entry short. This very big push up, I had my order ready because I'm thinking this is actually going to move back up and at least give me a clean scalp. And as you can see, I thought at the time there might be another range here, but I wasn't too fond of this lower support because there's just too many violations here. So it could have been actually down here. And even then, I just thought there was enough room to get out before it hit the top. So I entered 1 tick above. I also saw this as making higher lows every time now. So I'm thinking it's bouncing off of this. It might come back, touch the other side. But in any case, there's enough room for a scalp. Comes back down. I was a little worried here because I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'm wrong. It might be at the top of this range and I bought too close to the top. And my exit was actually right here at the top of these two trades, or these two candles, but it never filled me. So I knew I had to push 1 tick through to make sure my order was filled. So when it came back down, I was suspicious, thinking maybe I should just scratch the trade, but I just decided to hold on. And then it flashed up and I got out right here, this little purple arrow. And then the price is going to continue moving up, comes back, touches this. It's acting as resistance, but then it fails and it keeps moving up, flashes back down. I had this green channel. I thought this was the first break. It tested the high, came back. And so however you drew this, you could say there's already 1 attempt, and this could be the second attempt. And I was thinking at the time, maybe there's actually just 1 attempt so far. So I did see this as a new high, first entry long, second entry long. And I also saw this as a failed second entry short. From here, say first entry short, pull back, second entry short, and then failed on this candle here. Technically hasn't failed when you see this, but it's getting ready to fail. And this candle is so bullish, it engulfed this entire candle. So I think this is a possible trade. You'd have to be a little aggressive. Maybe you could reduce the risk by setting it back a little bit. But since this closed so strongly, you would think it's going to have enough momentum to at least push through for a scalp. And that's exactly what it did. Not only did it do that, it opened, it crept down a little bit. So even if you kept that EMA as entry, try to reduce your risk a little bit, you would have still gotten in on the trade. So I saw it, but I didn't kind of feel too comfortable with it at the time. But I looked back and I thought this was a possible trade. I drew this trend channel support and I put the resistance up here. So it becomes this yellow channel going up. This is actually where I take my second trade of the day. I saw this as a new high, first entry long, pull back, second entry long. Now the EMA is holding and EMA looks like it's starting to turn up again. So I also thought the signal bar was a little neutral, but I wanted to take this trade, but I wanted ideally this to close higher. So I waited for the next signal bar or the next trigger bar. It went up, and at the time I thought it was going to close up here, and I thought my trade would have gone without me, but it actually came back and closed here. So then I actually entered one tick above the original signal bar, which is right here, and I thought there was enough room because this trigger bar never came back to touch the EMA. It actually kind of floated above. So it gave me a little more confidence to take this trade. Entered, and I was able to quickly scalp out. The price then continued moving. I did see one leg up, pull back, second leg, so I made a measured move now. And I was just wondering, okay, is it going to have some kind of resistance, some kind of rejection back? But then EMA is also creeping upwards. Prices then continue chopping. I'm just watching. It's breaking through now. So I'm still just hanging in there. This is really congested right here. Doesn't look very clean. Breaks out. It looks like it's respecting this. Now there's an overshoot here, but this is such a rapid push up and back down on no real discernible news that I could find. It might have been something said or somebody got spooked. Came back down. This is actually where I take my third trade. So I count this as a high. So first entry long, pull back. This is a doji bar. And when this one first formed, it came back down, it touched the EMA, and it was dancing around here a little bit. So I thought there was actually still enough room for a quick scalp. So even though this is well, not the best signal bar, and I'll admit this is a little bit riskier trade. I like that it was bouncing off the EMA. And even though there's an overshoot here, typically when there's an overshoot on the channel, I expect one push up, second push up, and also prices to come back to test this low of the channel. And typically when there's an overshoot of the channel, you want to be extra careful taking an entry, a second entry in the direction of where it originally was going when the overshoot happened, because this is kind of this big impulsive move. And typically it wants to come back and correct to the other side and usually make a symmetrical overshoot here. So that's something to be aware of and also something to be careful of. However, the way I viewed it, I didn't really see this overshoot as that important because the body was still within the channel. So I thought it was a one push up, two push up, and I thought there was enough potential room to get my scalp out. So what I did was when this opened and it was dancing around, came back and it actually held against the EMA, I dropped my order and I was lucky to came back and pick me up, and I quickly scalped out. As you can see, if I tried to go for 2 points, I probably would have gotten stopped out on this candle. And then prices continue moving, so it does break out on this side, so it validates this overshoot here with a symmetric overshoot here. And now it's kind of continuing back in the direction of the original bullish uptrend. So prices are continuing moving. It falls into this congestion area. I don't really see anything that I particularly like. I do see a second entry long here. It's a new high, first entry long, second entry long. This is a pretty good signal bar, but it's an inside bar to this big red bar, so I'm not too keen on that. And it's close to the top of this possible range. So I was thinking this might be a range that prices are kind of respecting. So I decided to skip this trade. Then I also saw this is a new high, first entry long, second entry long, pullback, new low, first entry short, second entry short. Here, the second entry short fails, and this could be considered a higher low, but you could also see it as a new high, first entry long, second entry long, failure of the second entry long. So this felt like a little bit iffy all around. Plus, even though this is a good signal bar, the EMA is chopping straight through, so you don't really need to respect the EMA all that much as a key entry point, especially when it's in a range. But I also didn't like that it didn't come back down to the bottom of the range, because I was also playing with the idea that potentially the range might actually be a little bit higher right here. But even then, it still didn't quite touch. And to get a touch, you had to kind of drag it here. But then now you're having all these weird little overshoots. So I settled on the bottom of the range just being about right here. Price then continue moving. It chops. This is just really, really tight price action. I see a second entry long here. It's a new high, quadruple top. First entry long, second entry long is about to set up. It creates the second entry long, but here the trade has already happened. It's a good signal bar. Area is a little congested though, and it's an inside bar again to this red candle, similar to this setup here. So definitely, if I was thinking of going long, it would make me a little concerned, even though there's enough room to get your scalp. But to wait for confirmation now, the trade's already been made because you're already pressing against a possible high. And of course, then it works. Prices then continue moving up. I see a second entry long here is a new high. It's a first entry long, and I think there's a potential channel here, but the channel doesn't fit too well here. So even though you have a second entry long here, confirms, it wasn't very decisive. So it just felt a little iffy, but it is bouncing off this potential support, which used to act as a resistance. So that's another thing you could use to justify taking a trade. But it is also very late in the day. And I was already up 3 trades to 0 losses. So I thought, I'm just not going to push my luck. Turns out this trade would have worked for that quick scalp. And then prices just kind of move into the close. So I found most of the trades kind of later in the day, latter half of the day, kind of right here around 9 o'clock Pacific Standard. And here there wasn't as many setups that I could find, but overall it wasn't too bad. I know it was kind of a relief compared to the trading yesterday. Yesterday, as I said, I didn't really see any good trades to take. It was just very choppy. There's so many news announcements that was coming out, FOMC rate decision, that it was probably better to have just, even though I was sick, better to not have done anything, which kind of was a mixed blessing in disguise, I guess. So hopefully that was helpful.